So the next fireside chat is going to be really interesting, letting us in on how Google is positioned in Web3. It's a fireside chat on behind the scenes of Web3 at Google Cloud with James Tromans, Director of Google Cloud Web3, moderated by Savannah from Cointelegraph. Please give it up for them. It's going to be an amazing session.
Hello. Hi. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Savannah Fortis. I'm with Cointelegraph. And today I have the pleasure of sitting with James Tromans, the head of Web3 at Google. James, can you introduce yourself a bit?
Nice to be here. Thank you. Yes, so pleasure to be here. My name's James Tromans. I lead our overall Web3 business at Google Cloud. That comprises product and engineering, strategy, operations, so on and so forth. We started this team in earnest a little over a year ago from the product and engineering side. But as we will discuss, Google Cloud has been busy within the Web3 space since at least 2018, when we started indexing Bitcoin and later Ethereum data. But we can talk about that later on.
Great, thank you. So exactly, we want to start off by looking at Google's role in Web3. When we think of the internet, we think of Google. Google is almost synonymous for the internet. It's a verb in our lexicon now. I Googled this. But when we think of Web3, all of us who have been interacting in the space, Google is not the first thing that we think of. So can you explain Google's emerging role in Web3?
Yeah, so I agree. I mean, I think a lot of the innovation in this space is naturally happening at the startups and at the smaller organizations, and obviously via the layer one foundations and their support of the ecosystem. But as we think about the development of Web3 and we think about how we onboard new users, Google and Google Cloud, I believe, have a really critical role to play in helping us get to that ubiquitous uptake and usage of Web3 technologies. So for example, our role has historically been led by our customers. The reason we're here, the reason why Google Cloud cares, and the reason why we have a first-party product and engineering organization building technology in Web3 is because our customers have taken us there. So as an organization, Google Cloud is obviously driven by what our customers are asking us to do, where are they building, what are they doing. And so with that, we've been taken by them for the journey, and that has led to Blockchain Node Engine, which is a first-party product where you can click to deploy fully managed nodes, which is actually in GA this week, all the way through to our Web3 Startups program. So you can have $100,000 of Google Cloud credits and access to services from our partners like Nansen or Aptos and so on, who are obviously part of our ecosystem. And so we are driven by our engineering roots as an engineering organization. We love to be where the bleeding edge technology is. A lot of successful Web3 organizations, the big ones, the household brands that you know, many of them have Zooglers either founding them or working at them. Zoogler is a former Googler. And our partners and our customers have taken us through this journey to help us understand the space better. And now I would say, my team at least are pretty deep in the space. And they're individuals, they're people like you that love the technology and have chosen to help make that a reality at Google Cloud.
Great. And in the Web3 space, two main, almost, the ethos of the Web3 space is definitely decentralization and also democratization. And I'm curious how a big tech company like Google is going to be able to uphold these values and have a place within a decentralized space.
Yeah, so obviously, fantastic question, almost the elephant in the room. But I think it's not as complicated or as controversial as many people would actually like to believe. I think it's more straightforward than this. So if you think about Web3, Well, firstly, when Web3 is truly ubiquitous and successful, it'll just be the web, right? Like, we don't talk about Web2 when we're talking about social media and how that's come forward from the internet. So we'll just be talking about the web. And the role of the web and what it does for society is been built on a bunch of core technologies like TCP/IP. No one here thinks when you're using the internet how you're using TCP/IP. Similarly, when Web3 is really successful, no one's going to be thinking about they're using blockchain. It'll just work, it'll just be there, and it will be affording the user various capabilities, privacy, security, and an optionality, that overused word, but still very true, that perhaps they don't have today. I think they do have security today, but I think that will be enhanced through the adoption of these technologies. And so from Google Cloud's perspective, when you use Google, when you send your Gmail, when you go on Google Maps, much of that is operating on undersea cables that Google built. That's operating on dark fiber that Web3 will still need in order to be able to reach the whole world, right? It'll need to be able to leverage all of the hard work that's existed prior in order to get us to where we need to go. And so none of that goes away. Similarly, people care about environmentally sustainable infrastructure. People care about security. I don't believe compute is fully commoditized. I think people care about uptime, resiliency, availability. And I think Google Cloud has a really, really important role to play in bringing its existing capabilities to bear for the Web3 ecosystem to use. No one has to use Google Cloud. No one has to use Google infrastructure. But if people want to, they should be able to. And if you've got 75% of your nodes running on a different cloud provider, you might want to think carefully about whether or not you actually want to decentralize those nodes away from one place and put them in lots of clouds. And so making it easy for people to do that is really, really important to us. And so that's why we're building everything from first-party product all the way through to working with partners.
And you did mention that Google Cloud has been working in the space for some time. However, it's been, at least on the surface, behind the scenes, so to say. Just now, we're starting to see partnerships with Google Cloud and big Web3 entities like Solana and Polygon. In the midst of a bear market, in the midst of, in terms of regulations towards the Web3 space, in a time of kind of uncertainty, why are we seeing Google Cloud come in now?
Yeah, so it's a nice question. And the analogy I'll use is generative AI, right? So I think you can't go throughout a day without hearing about it. But generative AI is off the back of 30 years of research. And what we see now is the fruits of that labor, right? So I think it's somewhat true, but to a lesser extent, but definitely the same ethos is with what we've been doing in Web3. Concretely, what I mean by that is we have been busy working in this space since as early as 2018 when we were indexing Bitcoin and Ethereum data. And since then, this was a guy called Alan Day who worked in developer relations, who helped drive this from all the way back then to now, when we pitched Google Cloud's most senior leadership on the fact that we have customers that are using GCP already to solve their business problems, and we don't have anything specific for the Web3 space for them. Maybe we should do something about that. And so what we're seeing now, and these partnerships, is the culmination of many years of commitment and understanding in this space, to the point now where we have people in APAC who are tokenomic experts, straight out of the industry, second to none. We have cryptographers in Google. I mean, Google's an engineering company, right? So cryptography, deep cryptographic experts who understand all the details of how zero-knowledge proofs are working and are actually involved in the research in that space. And so it's not like we've just come now to this space and we're like, we don't know what we're doing. We've been slowly but surely building real ground-up understanding of the ecosystem, the culture. People use the word movement. At the end of the day, the team at Google, they're just individuals that love the tech. And so we're seeing that these final announcements. When I say final, I think we're just at the beginning, but these cherries on the top of the cake are because of all the hard work that other people, even before my team came around, have done to get us to where we are today.
And Despite this, there's still a little bit of uncertainty when companies in the Web3 space see such a big tech giant like Google stepping in. Yet you have managed to create some really high-profile partnerships with some of the biggest players in the Web3 ecosystem. My question for you is, how do you build this trust with these big players in Web3? Like, how have you positioned yourself to make them feel comfortable to enter into a partnership to build with Google?
So if you think about being a founder, many of you probably are working as founders or technologists in these organizations. It's one thing to have a relationship with a cloud provider where it's about sales and cost. Like how cheaply can I get this server to run my zero-knowledge proof workloads? That's a bit of a shallow conversation, and yeah, money is important, especially in this economic environment. And sure, we want to compete there. But it's a different value proposition when you can talk to a cryptographic expert who can help you with your problems, who's a Google engineer, who has that shared passion. And I would say one of the things that differentiates what Google Cloud has been doing in this space from many of the other large techs has been the people who truly care about what the customers and our partners are building, and being able to talk to them in a way that is not just their language, but actually add something technical to that engagement. So I think that's a big part of it. As I said earlier, a number of these founders have come from Google. Google's a big company, and there's a lot of ex-Googlers working there. So that helps. I mean, we're all just building relationships. But then from a pure technical standpoint, the blockchain node engine product that I just mentioned, this fully managed node offering, a number of organizations have stepped away from offering that service. So, the existing organizations that make it easy to run nodes have sort of started to ramp down that capability. And part of it is because they believe it's getting commoditized. But I don't necessarily think that's true. I think one of the reasons why we've been able to form these partnerships so successfully with Web3 natives is because our infrastructure gives them SLOs and SLAs that they actually require to be an enterprise business. Like at the end of the day, this isn't just people tinkering around in their basements. If you want to have Starbucks, do something serious, you need enterprise grade uptime and reliability. And yes, blockchain should be able to do that natively, but having more nodes on more reliable infrastructure in more corners of the world can only be a good thing. And so that quality of infrastructure that Google Cloud can bring definitely helps with building these relationships.
Can you expand on some of the relationships that you've created, for example, with, I think most recently, Polygon?
Yeah, so we announced the relationship with Polygon at Consensus in Austin. So for those that didn't hear about that, effectively we've entered into a strategic partnership there to make sure that it's easy to deploy Polygon proof-of-stake nodes on GCP. So Google engineers, Google Site Reliability Engineering, DevOps will make it so that anyone can come to Google Cloud Platform, they can log in either through the UI or through an API and say, hey, I want a Polygon proof-of-stake node, I want it in Europe, click to deploy, and it's their node. And so that's one area where we've been working with Polygon. They've also been exploring using GCP for their proofs and the zero-knowledge proof technology stack that they've been developing. So making sure that we can do that for them extremely cost effectively, obviously compared to running it on-premise, but also by the cloud providers, and working at the real detailed level so that we are working hand in glove with them. And then lastly, as folks probably know, Polygon has more than just proof of stake. It has other efforts, and so they will also be accessible on Google Cloud via our marketplace, which is a common way where folks like to scale their ability to reach customers that Google already has.
Excellent. Great. And with these businesses coming in, these ecosystems coming in, sharing large amounts of data in the Google Cloud system, how do you ensure privacy and security for these Web3 companies that are starting to build with Google Cloud?
Yes, so I actually would say this is no different to how we work with like traditional finance organizations like Chicago Mercantile Exchange or HSBC, right? So whenever anyone stores anything on Google Cloud, it's their data, it's their keys. We have things like confidential compute, so not to get too technical, but trusted execution environments where the data that you're working on isn't just encrypted when you're sending it across the internet, it's still encrypted in the machine whilst it's being worked on, making it very, very difficult to have a look inside and what's going on. So all of this existing technical Web2 capabilities doesn't just go out the window when we're talking about Web3. We still bring all of that expertise to bear for Web3 workloads, which I think is only a good thing. And if we want to get 1 billion users plus, we need existing businesses to adopt this technology. We live in a world where these existing businesses are regulated. These are in flight. They're flying, and if they want to adopt this technology, we can't just throw all of the things that they have to adhere to out the window. We need to understand how it fits together. And so data residency, that's kind of important if you're a financial organization. How does crypto and data residency fit together? Access transparency, so if you've got a blockchain node and it crashes and a site reliability engineer at Google brings it back up for you because it's a managed service, maybe you need to know that they're in Germany, right? Maybe they have to be a certain nationality because you're regulated. I don't know if many people in the Web3 space understand or think about this as a first, top of mind thing. And yet, it's these subtle things that we all need to get right to get the mass adoption. Otherwise, we won't see it because we live in the real world.
Absolutely. And I think this is where Google can really use its prowess that it has as a major figure in internet technology and internet solutions as almost a bridge for companies, entities who are familiar with Google and used to the services and the security that Google provides to usher them into Web3, in which otherwise they may or may not feel a bit hesitant or a bit weary of what the space entails.
Yeah,
Have you experienced that?
I completely agree. And I would say, it's a commonly used phrase. I think people have heard this said many times before, but not everyone wants to own their own private keys. But I think everyone should have the choice to own their own private keys. And we live in a world today where that is difficult at best, in some cases impossible. And so for those that don't want to, we need to provide great backup and re-entry services. Maybe that includes using Google Drive. Maybe that includes a new service that doesn't exist yet that someone in this audience builds on top of Google Cloud. For the people that want to keep everything in a cold wallet that's in their drawer, in their basement, great, right? We need that too, but there's a whole continuum to get the adoption. And I think over the course of 10, 20, 30 years, people probably move to a more self-sovereign mindset that is afforded to them through Web3 technologies. But not right now, not right away. We're not going to get 1 billion people suddenly understanding the implications of looking after their own private keys. And so I think having services that exist that have highly available, reliable, and secure infrastructure that can help people on that transition is needed and fantastic.
Absolutely. And now we have about 5 minutes left, so I would like to ask you, what does the future, the foreseeable and the long-term future that you are aware of, what does that look like for Google and Web3? What can we expect to see if you can share from Google's activities in Web3?
Yeah, so I mean, with authority, I can only talk about Google Cloud, given that that's the bit that I look after. But so looking back, we have this product, Blockchain Node Engine. We do a lot of indexing of blockchain data, taking it off-chain and making it easy for people to query. So for example, when we're talking to lots of startups, whether they're big or small, one of the first things we notice that they do is parse blockchain data and make it easy for them to search so that they know what their users are doing and they know what's happening to their smart contracts, and they can create interesting and compelling visualizations, whether that's DeFi or GameFi or something else entirely. So we have these emerging capabilities, and they are, I would argue, best in class. But then the question is, what does Google Cloud build next? And who do we partner with next? And what do those relationships look like? And so we have a fairly large laundry list of things we could do. But as with any decision, there's an opportunity cost to what you pick. And so just maybe speaking for myself, the thing that I'm most excited by, and it's almost like a call to arms, is the future of online digital identity. So, for those that connect with Google to various products and services, the reality of that is if you were to breach, say Facebook, say you connect with Facebook, if you breach the terms and conditions of the service provider that's giving you that OAuth connection, that connect with, you will lose access to all of the services that you connected to. And that for me is a great example of where, whilst it's really convenient and easy, is it right? Like, is that what you want? Do you want that risk? And for some people, they don't care, right? For some people, that's okay. But for other people, they do. And so how do we bring self-sovereign identity to the forefront to enable frictionless commerce, people to be able to own their own data, but in a way that they don't really have to think about the underlying technology? This is an area where I think Google Cloud has strong existing relationships in this space and is excited to see where it goes. Vitalik, for example, has spoken about soul-bound tokens. These are NFTs that you can't transfer to anyone else. Well, for those that are interested in this space, that sounds an awful lot like a credential. And credentials have an entire body of work by the W3C called verifiable credentials and decentralized identifiers that has been worked on for a number of years that the sort of Web3 native space has not really been paying attention to. And yet it fits perfectly with the ethos of users owning data in a wallet, selectively disclosing bits of that data to a third party, using zero-knowledge proofs to only tell them that, hey, I'm over 21, I'm not going to give you my date of birth, to then unlock really frictionless commerce. And so I'm very passionate about this space, and I think from a Google Cloud perspective, we're paying close attention to who are the partners that are willing to issue credentials, who are the partners out there that are willing to verify these credentials to say, hey, we're willing to take a business decision on the fact that you are this age and you do have this background, or you do have this university degree, or you do have this income, and from that we're going to offer you a service. This sort of world where we can reduce friction and, not to talk about AI all the time, but throw generative AI in there where you have an agent who can help look at your credentials, look at what data you have in there, and use that on your behalf to talk to third-party services, maybe in a reverse auction process, to get you the best version of that product. This is an amazing space, and one that I think is very nascent, and yet all the technology exists now. The building blocks are there, and you can do a lot of this on GCP today. And so we're going to be thinking about this space, and we're going to be thinking about what our partners can be doing in this space.
Excellent. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, James. It was a pleasure to speak and to hear what Google's doing for us and with us in Web3.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you.